Burp tabs, Target and Proxy. Let's start WebGoat first. I'm using the -- server port option to specify a port. This is because by default WebGoat binds to port 8080 and Burp starts its proxy listener by default on the same port. Of course, you can change the setting in Burp if you'd like to in the Proxy tab. Make sure we have Burp, WebGoat, and Firefox started and configured properly. Also verify that Burp's intercept is off so we can use Firefox to browse the WebGoat application. We can find the intercept configuration on the Proxy tab. Once WebGoat starts, it will show us how to access it. Note the context path /webgoat. Let's switch to Burp and go to the Proxy tab. We should make sure we have a clean history by using the option with the same name from the context menu. Now we can move on to WebGoat. To load the app, visit http localhost port 9090/webgoat in Firefox. The web app requires registration, so I'm going to create a user. You can choose anything you want for both the username and the password. Once we sign up, we have been automatically logged into WebGoat. Now let's look at what HTTP traffic Burp has recorded for us. We can see the full list of HTTP requests in the Proxy tab by going to the HTTP History subtab. In the top panel, Burp displays a list of all the requests along with lots of interesting details. We have columns for host, HTTP method, URL, if it has parameters or not, if the request was edited by us or not, the HTTP return code, the response length, the file extension, the page title, the comment, if TLS was used or not, the destination IP and the proxy listener it was bound to. The bottom panel contains the actual HTTP request and response content. Requests. The first subtab on the request tab is called raw and shows the entire HTTP request. We can view this information in a more structured way in the next tabs like the headers tab. If the request had parameters, we would also have seen a parameter tab. We can choose to display content as hex, useful to spot those non-printable characters or when dealing with binary content. At the bottom, there's a text box which we can use to perform searches inside the request. Burp will highlight the search term if found. We can move between findings using the back and forward arrow buttons. The response tab works similar to request with the same viewing modes and options. As today's applications can perform hundreds of requests after a single click, the HTTP history can get very crowded even with a well-defined scope. How can we deal with all that noise? Well, Burp has some nice filtering capabilities. We can filter by MIME type, HTTP response code, file extension, and others. Note that the Pro version allows us to filter by a certain string or regex, so it's a lot more powerful. Context menu. Now let's see what Burp's context menu has to offer. A context menu is available in almost all of Burp's panels. For example, by right-clicking a URL, we can add it to scope, send it to another functionality like repeater or intruder, or even open the request in our browser, complete with the entire session. Besides filtering requests, we can also mark our important requests. One way to do this is to add a comment. The comment will then show up in the corresponding comment column. An easier way to quickly find requests is to use color highlighting. To do that, you just right-click the request, select highlight and choose a color. We can choose from several colors so we can color code our important requests. Another nice feature of Burp is the copy as curl command. We can always use this to reproduce the request outside Burp. Let's give it a try. Select the request, open the context menu and select copy to curl. Open a terminal and paste the command there. And just run it. And it works. Great. Add to scope. Now, make sure we have selected the top domain request for WebGoat, open the context menu and click Add to Scope. Since we didn't have anything added to our scope, Burp immediately asks if we'd like to stop recording our out-of-scope traffic. This will avoid accumulating out-of-scope data in our Burp project. Notice that Burp now displays a notice: logging out-of-scope proxy traffic is disabled. We can always re-enable logging if we desire. Now that we have disabled that, we can use the Show Only in Scope Items filter for a cleaner history. Burp removed the auto-scope requests. To adjust the scope, go to the Target tab and choose Scope. Note the URL entered there works as a prefix. We can also set a more fine-grained scope by using the Advanced Scope feature. Sitemap. Now let's switch to the Sitemap tab. The left panel shows a tree view of the hosts and URL that were proxied through Burp. On the right, we see that the requests and responses look the same as in the HTTP history subtab, and we have pretty much the same features as there. Intercept. Let's return to WebGoat. Open the Firefox Developer Tools and go to the Network tab. We will see that WebGoat performs a few requests at a certain time interval. We can intercept those requests in Burp. So switch to Burp and let's make sure we're on the Intercept subtab. Click Intercept is off to enable HTTP request interception. Notice the button now shows Intercept is on. In a few moments, we should get the request. Great, we got the request. We can now perform several items. Click Forward to send the request to the server unchanged, drop to deny it, or select an item from the action bottom or menu. We can do similar things as in other tabs, like send a request to other Burp features, export it, or more custom options for this particular feature, like set ignore rules for request interception or choose to intercept the server response for certain request. We can now forward or drop this particular request, and immediately we intercept another one. In the time we spent looking at the previous request, Burp has intercepted and logged requests WebGoat made and will present them to us one by one, even if the request times out on the client side. To quickly discard all requests, just click Intercept is on to disable interception and forward all backlog requests. Let's use the intercept feature. We're going to intercept the server response and modify its content. For this example, we'll edit the server response before it's displayed in the browser. Let's change the HTML page title. Make sure request interception is enabled in Burp and type http localhost 9090/webgoat in your browser address bar. Back to Burp, we got a first request. Let's intercept the response for this request by clicking Action and go to Do Intercept and choose Response to this request. Then click Forward. We see we got a 302 redirect to WebGoat ending with a slash. This happened because of how the web server handles URLs without an ending slash. We just forward this response to the client, which is the browser in our case, by clicking Forward. We get a new request in Burp, and it's the WebGoat with a slash at the end we got redirected to earlier. So intercept the response and click Forward. And we got another 302 redirect, but it looks like it's the final one. So choose Intercept Response again and forward the request. Great! We intercept the response and get the page HTML content. Just change the title to anything you want and click Forward. Disable Intercept and return to Firefox. Note that the title is now set as our edited value. The Options subtab here allows us to configure Burp listeners, among other things. We can add more listeners on different ports or network interfaces and configure how the proxy handles certain things like TLS certificates.